What if the most terrifying stories you've heard weren't just the stuff of campfire tales or late night dares? What if the creepy legends you grew up fearing were real, and the truth turned out to be even darker than the fiction? Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on the creepiest urban legends that didn't stay legends. They crossed the line into horrifying reality, and once you know the truth, you'll never be able to forget them. The Funhouse Corpse. Step into a carnival funhouse. The smell of popcorn and rust in the air, walls lined with flickering lights, mirrors that twist your reflection into monsters. Somewhere among the cackling clowns and rubbery skeletons, a mummified figure dangles from the ceiling, illuminated by an eerie red glow. People laugh, snap photos, and jostle past it without a second thought. But in the 1970s, one film crew discovered that this wasn't a decoration at all. It was a real human corpse. During production for the $6 Million Man at the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California, a crew member moved what he thought was an old, overused prop and snapped its arm clean off. What spilled out wasn't stuffing or sawdust, it was bone. The body belonged to Elmer McCurdy, a failed outlaw whose tragic story began decades earlier. In 1911, McCurdy attempted to rob a train, but instead of escaping with cash or valuables, he made off with a sack of worthless coins. Shot dead days later during a police standoff, his corpse was embalmed and put on public display at a funeral home, attracting paying spectators curious about the bandit who couldn't rob a train. When no relatives claimed him, the undertaker saw an opportunity. McCurdy's body changed hands over and over, sold to carnivals, freak shows, even movie producers, becoming less human and more prop with each layer of paint and each decade of decay. By the time he hung inside that funhouse, McCurdy had traveled across America for 65 years, mistaken for a fake. Even more chilling, carnival workers over the years had repainted him with phosphorescent paint to make him glow under black lights, unknowingly preserving his desiccated flesh. Only after the accidental discovery did authorities piece together the full story. Elmer McCurdy was finally laid to rest in a proper grave, with 2 feet of concrete poured over the casket, just to ensure he could never be stolen and exploited again. But if you thought a corpse in a funhouse was unsettling, wait until you meet the axe-wielding terror that still haunts a quiet Virginia bridge, the Bunny Man. It's an ordinary-looking bridge, short, narrow, barely wide enough for a car to squeeze through. But under the right conditions, at night, with a cold mist creeping across the ground, the Colchester Overpass in Virginia transforms into something straight out of a nightmare. This is the domain of the Bunny Man. The legend goes back to 1904, when an asylum bus supposedly crashed nearby. Most of the inmates were quickly recaptured, but one, a violent patient, vanished into the woods. Soon after, locals began finding half-eaten rabbits strung from trees, their throats slashed. Whispers spread of a feral man, still lurking, wearing the bloodied carcasses as a grotesque costume. For decades, it was just an eerie campfire story, until October 1970 when reality caught up with the legend. Bob Bennett, an Air Force Academy cadet, and his fiancée were parked near the bridge when a figure lunged from the darkness. Dressed either in a bizarre bunny costume or a cloak with pointed ears, depending on the account, the man screamed at them about trespassing, then hurled a hatchet through their car window, narrowly missing them. Less than 2 weeks later, construction security guard Paul Phillips encountered a similar figure, chopping at a half-built house, ranting about property rights, and swinging an axe menacingly. Over 50 reports flooded Fairfax County Police in the following months, each describing a strange figure near the bridge, always aggressive, always vanishing into the trees before he could be caught. Despite extensive investigations, no suspect was ever apprehended. Today, thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts still flock to Bunnyman Bridge, daring each other to visit at midnight, especially on Halloween, because according to local superstition, that's when the Bunnyman returns. But not all urban legends hide behind costumes. Some scars are written on a person's very face, the Green Man. On lonely Pennsylvania backroads, late at night, drivers sometimes glimpsed a figure trudging alongside the highway, his silhouette twisted, his face glowing a faint, sickly green in their headlights. Locals called him the Green Man. Some whispered that he was a ghost, others said he was the victim of a chemical accident, cursed to wander forever. The truth, though heartbreaking, was far more human. Raymond Robinson was an 8-year-old boy in 1919 when he suffered a life-altering accident. Trying to reach a bird's nest on a bridge, he accidentally touched an active power line carrying 22,000 volts. Against all odds, he survived, but the burns disfigured him permanently. He lost his eyes, nose, one ear, and an arm, leaving him with a face so horrifying that strangers gasped or even fled at the sight. Unable to find steady work or live a normal life, Raymond spent his days crafting wallets and belts for his family's modest income. At night, when the roads were empty and the risk of frightening someone was lower, he walked. Stories of his nighttime strolls soon took on a life of their own. Teenagers dared each other to find the Green Man. Some claimed his skin glowed with a greenish hue, perhaps reflecting the streetlights, or perhaps something stranger. Others who met him described a kind, soft-spoken man who, despite the stares and whispers, never lost his warmth. Raymond Robinson became an unlikely legend, not for horror, but for resilience. He passed away in 1985, but sightings of a lonely figure walking the rural highways still trickle in from time to time, as if Charlie No-Face is still out there taking one last walk under the stars. But some legends aren't about who you can see. They're about what's hidden, right underneath you. Dead body under the mattress. Imagine checking into a hotel after a long day of travel. The bed looks inviting enough. You flop down, pull the covers over you, and drift off to sleep, never knowing that just inches beneath you lies something horrific. The urban legend of a body hidden inside a hotel bed has circulated for decades, whispered at sleepovers and in horror forums. Most people assumed it was just an urban myth, until horrifying real-life cases proved otherwise. The most chilling documented event happened in 1999 at the Ocean View Motel in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Guests checking into room 112 immediately noticed the foul, nauseating stench. Some complained to management, who chalked it up to musty carpets or a blocked sewer line. Housekeeping sprayed air freshener, swapped out the linens, and sent the guests back in. Night after night, guests slept soundly, oblivious to the decomposing body of Saul Hernandez hidden inside the box spring beneath them. Only after a new wave of complaints did housekeeping finally lift the mattress and reveal the horrifying sight. The bloated, rotting corpse, stuffed deep within the frame, releasing the source of the noxious odor that guests had been breathing in for days. The fallout from the discovery was immediate. Health inspections, lawsuits, a media frenzy, and nationwide changes in hotel industry standards. Today, many hotels have switched to solid platform beds instead of box springs, all to prevent the nightmare of another hidden body under a guest's bed. The scariest part? The Ocean View Motel incident wasn't the only case. Similar stories have surfaced from Las Vegas, Kansas City, Memphis, and Florida, suggesting that the nightmare isn't isolated. It's everywhere. Because when you close your eyes to sleep, you may not be alone, even if you can't see the horror right beneath you. But what happens when the terror isn't underneath you? It's inside your own walls, watching, waiting, people living in the walls. The idea that someone could secretly live within the walls of your home, creeping through crawl spaces, peeking through vents, is the stuff of nightmares. Yet this urban legend has more truth behind it than most people realize. In 1986, the town of Pepperell, Massachusetts, discovered their worst fears embodied in a young man named Daniel LaPlante. After terrorizing a local family with disturbing phone calls and rearranged objects, LaPlante escalated. He slipped inside the family's home, hiding in crawl spaces and behind walls, emerging when no one was around. When police finally apprehended him, they found a network of small tunnels Daniel had carved between the walls, allowing him to move undetected through the house. He wasn't just hiding, he was living there. LaPlante would watch the family through tiny holes drilled into the walls, whispering to them, moving personal belongings to create confusion and fear, and writing chilling messages like, "I'm in your room," on mirrors isn't the only case. In 2008, across the world in Fukuoka, Japan, a man noticed his food disappearing. Small things, a missing yogurt cup, a carton of juice lower than he remembered. Convinced he was losing his mind, he installed hidden cameras. What he captured was bone-chilling. A homeless woman who had been living undetected inside his closet for nearly a year, sneaking out when he left for work, eating his food, showering in his bathroom, and slipping back into hiding before he returned. Both cases shattered the comforting belief that home equals safety. Because sometimes the walls that protect you might be hiding someone who's already inside. But while some terrors lurk quietly in hiding, Others march boldly through the woods, unseen yet undeniable. Le Loyon. In the misty forests surrounding the Motiers region of Switzerland, a new kind of fear took root in the early 2000s. Hikers began reporting encounters with a bizarre figure, a towering silhouette draped in camouflage, its face hidden behind an antique military-grade gas mask. They called him Le Loyon. Unlike most urban legends, which are born from secondhand stories and vague rumors, Le Loyon was real enough to photograph. Witnesses described seeing him silently pacing forest trails, carrying flowers in his hands, or simply standing motionless among the trees. He never spoke, never chased, never attacked, but his silent presence was enough to freeze seasoned hikers in terror. Speculation ran wild. Was he a military veteran haunted by old memories? A recluse fleeing society? Something else? For over a decade, Le Loyon wandered the forests without incident, becoming a strange fixture in local folklore. But as sightings increased, and as media attention grew, he seemed to retreat deeper into hiding. Then, in 2013, Le Loyon disappeared. In a chilling twist, hikers found his abandoned mask, cloak, and a handwritten note expressing despair over being hunted by public curiosity. Authorities confirmed the discovery but refused to speculate further. To this day, the true identity of Le Loyon remains unknown. Some believe he finally abandoned the woods. Others claim he still roams the forest paths at night, just harder to see. And while Le Loyon's story leaves behind an eerie sadness, the next legend leaves behind something far worse: cropsy. In the 1970s and 1980s, Staten Island children lived in the shadow of a terrifying myth: cropsy. He was the madman under the bed, the shadow lurking at the end of the street, the bogeyman who snatched children when their parents weren't looking. But as the years passed, the line between legend and reality blurred, because there really was a predator roaming Staten Island, and his name was Andre Rand. Rand, a former orderly at the infamous Willowbrook State School, a mental institution exposed for horrific abuse and neglect, became the prime suspect in a series of child disappearances. His targets were vulnerable: children with disabilities, kids whose families lived on the margins, those no one would miss right away. In 1987, 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger, a girl with Down syndrome, vanished. After an extensive search, her body was found in a shallow grave near the old Willowbrook grounds, an area Rand was known to frequent. Though Rand was officially convicted for 2 kidnappings, suspicions tie him to at least 5 missing children. His reputation and the terror he sowed blurred so perfectly with the old cropsy legend that for many, the two became one and the same. Rand remains imprisoned today, but on Staten Island, some say cropsy's ghost still lingers, because once a legend becomes real, it never truly fades. And yet, even after everything you've heard so far, the next story may be the strangest and most haunting of them all: the toxic lady. Gloria Ramirez wasn't supposed to become a legend. She was just a 31-year-old woman battling the final stages of cervical cancer when she arrived at Riverside General Hospital on February 19th, 1994. But what happened in that emergency room would spark decades of rumors, conspiracy theories, and horror stories. From the moment Gloria was wheeled into the ER, staff noticed strange things. Her body emitted a greasy, oily sheen. Her breath smelled like ammonia and garlic. When nurses attempted to draw blood, they noticed white, crystalline particles floating in the sample. Then, one by one, hospital workers began to collapse. Nurses and doctors reported dizziness, nausea, difficulty breathing. Some suffered convulsions. Within minutes, 23 people had fallen ill and the entire ER was evacuated. A hazmat team was called in. Gloria Ramirez died shortly afterward, but the mystery of what happened to her only deepened. Speculation ran wild. Some believed she had undergone bizarre chemical treatments at home. Others suggested a government cover-up or even supernatural causes. The official theory? Gloria may have used DMSO, a household solvent, for pain relief. In the oxygen-rich hospital environment, it's believed the DMSO chemically transformed into a highly toxic compound called dimethyl sulfate, poisoning the very air around her. But even today, not everyone buys that explanation. In the end, Gloria Ramirez became known as the Toxic Lady, her story inspiring countless horror tales of haunted hospitals, cursed patients, and unseen chemical horrors. Because sometimes what kills you isn't what you see, it's what you can't. Urban legends survive because they tap into our deepest fears, the hidden dangers, the unseen threats, the monsters disguised as the mundane. But the most terrifying thing of all is realizing how many of these myths turned out to be true. Because when the lights go out and the world grows quiet, some of the scariest stories are still out there, waiting to be discovered.